Eve is stuck in morning traffic with her 2 kids, Josh and Izzy. While talking in the car, they notice something strange ahead. Cars are falling into a massive sinkhole as the ground collapses. Realizing the danger, Eve tries to escape with her family, but the hole keeps getting bigger. While running, Josh stops to help a little girl, causing him to fall behind and eventually fall into the pit. Eve runs to save him, but eventually she also falls in the hole. The sinkhole swallows many people, and the government declares a state of emergency. Meanwhile, Eve's husband Gavin, who struggles with mental trauma and is having strange visions after a plane crash. Gavin sees on the news fearing for his family. He rushes to the scene where he finds his daughter, Izzy. She tearfully tells him that both her mother and brother fell into the pit and might not have survived. Suddenly, strange birds emerge from the sinkhole, birds that no one has ever seen before. Meanwhile, Eve regains consciousness and finds herself unharmed, but in the middle of vast green fields with a green portal upwards. Confused, she wonders where she is and begins searching for Josh, who also fell into the pit. After walking for a while, she reaches a jungle and meets another man who is as bewildered as she is. They notice smoke in the distance and rush toward it, finding all the cars and people who fell into the pit. Eve finally reunites with Josh, and they realize there are now hundreds of survivors stranded in this strange jungle. They remember falling through the green portal but have no idea how to get back home. Seeing the fear among the people, a doctor named Sam steps up to lead them. He suggests that until they get help, they should gather food and water to survive together as a community. Everyone starts following his advice except for a police officer named Mary Beth. She secretly hides a box of protein bars, believing that everyone should fend for themselves. When Josh catches her, they argue, but their argument is interrupted by the sight of a wolf approaching them. The wolf chases them back to the survivors' camp, causing panic. People hide in cars to protect themselves. Just as the wolf is about to attack Eve and Josh, a man named Ty shoots the wolf at the last moment, but the bullet accidentally hits Josh too. The injured Josh is quickly taken to a bus where Dr. Sam tries to treat him but realizes he needs medicine, which they don't have. Dr. Sam recalls that an ambulance also fell into the portal and must be nearby, so they plan to search for it to get the medicine. Meanwhile, Dr. Sam's daughter Riley takes care of Josh. On the other side, a government scientist named Sophia informs the press that it's impossible to save anyone who fell into the pit, though efforts are being made to retrieve their bodies. Gavin, hearing this, suddenly experiences more visions, where he sees Eve near a stone with a handprint on it. He tells his daughter Izzy about it. Although Gavin has had jungle visions before, this time he's seeing his family in them. Meanwhile, Sophia's team sends a drone into the sinkhole to explore, but it loses signal as soon as it enters the portal. Gavin then sees a vision of the drone crashing inside the sinkhole, making him realize that his visions are showing him what's happening below. Gavin rushes to explain this to Dr. Sophia, but she dismisses him. Determined to find meaning in these visions, Gavin recalls that the stone he saw is a place he has visited with his family before. He goes home and checks through old family photos, confirming the location of the stone. Meanwhile, Eve, Dr. Sam, and Ty, the man with the gun, head out to find the ambulance to get the medicine needed for Josh. During the journey, Ty, who has cancer and is already dying, considers ending his life. However, Eve and Dr. Sam convince him to keep going and help others instead. Back at the stone's location, Gavin begins digging around, hoping to find more clues. Although Izzy doubts the significance of the visions, Gavin discovers a ring. It's the same ring Eve wore around her neck. Gavin realizes that his visions are true. Eve really did fall into the sinkhole and everything he's seen is real. Meanwhile, Eve, Sam, and Ty reach the ambulance and notice that they are near a famous mountain. Realizing they are not in the present but in the past. As they gather medicine for Josh, a tiger suddenly appears, forcing them to flee. During the escape, Dr. Sam falls off a cliff, leaving Eve and Ty to face the tiger. Fortunately, the tiger gets caught in a trap, revealing that other humans are present and they've set traps for animals. Eve and Ty quickly find Dr. Sam, who is injured. He warns them that Josh's condition could worsen if the infection spreads and urges Eve to take the medicine back to Josh alone. Ty stays with Dr. Sam, while Eve hurries back to the camp and administers the medicine and injections to her son as instructed. Meanwhile, Gavin watches a TV interview with a doctor who has knowledge about the sinkhole. Gavin contacts the doctor, explaining everything he's discovered and requesting carbon dating on the ring he found, which belonged to Eve. Dr. Sophia, noticing Gavin's intense interest and research into the matter, finally decides to take him seriously and calls him for a private meeting. Gavin learns that 3 years ago, a similar sinkhole opened in a remote desert, but since no one was there, the government kept it a secret. Gavin also finds out that his helicopter crashed near that area, meaning the crash wasn't his fault and he was suspended unjustly. The report on the ring Gavin found comes back, revealing that it is 10,000 years old. This confirms that the sinkhole is actually a time portal, and everyone who fell into it was transported 10,000 years into the past. Sophia explains that they have prepared a special plane to send through the portal in an attempt to rescue the survivors. Gavin's old friend Levi will pilot the plane for this mission. Meanwhile, back in the past, Ty and Sam prepare to take another camp member, Lucas, with them. Lucas is the the son of Marybeth, the police officer who was hoarding supplies earlier. Despite his troubled past, his mother always protected him. Veronica and Lily, another pair of survivors, want to give their father a proper burial after he was killed. A boy from the group named Scott accompanies Veronica into the jungle to help. However, they find her father's body arranged in between a stone places like a strange hand-shaped pattern, indicating that someone else is out there. Veronica returns, angry at her sister Lily, as she doesn't want Lily to interact with anyone else. Before the rescue mission, Gavin meets Levi alone and gives him Eve's wedding ring, asking him to deliver it to her if he finds her. Although hesitant at first, Levi agrees to take on the task. Levi eventually confesses to Gavin that when he was mentally ill that time, he had an affair with Eve. Despite this, Gavin focuses on the mission and asks Levi to bring his family back safely. The next day, a beast suddenly attacks the camp, forcing everyone to hide. The beast devours all their food before leaving. Scott, a science student, informs the group that this creature was extinct 10,000 years ago, so they have time travel to pass through the portal. With their food gone, Marybeth and her son Lucas head into the jungle to find more. They discover that the trap, which had previously caught a tiger, has been reset, indicating that someone else is in the area, though they don't know who. Back at camp, Dr. Sam, who was injured in the previous encounter, can no longer feel his legs. He tells his daughter, Riley, that he needs a spinal injection or he may never walk again. Though not a doctor, Riley, with the help of Josh and Scott, successfully administers the injection, saving her father. Meanwhile, a group goes out to hunt rabbits for food, but is pursued by a bear. They end up trapped in a cave where they surprisingly find Mary and Lucas, who had also taken refuge there. As they explore deeper into the cave, they come across the skeleton of a man who clearly was from their future timeline. It seems he had been trapped like them and eventually took his own life. The group manages to escape the cave and gathers mushrooms to eat. In the evening, the group returns to camp. Meanwhile, in the present, Levi enters the portal with his plane. However, as soon as the plane touches the portal, the signal is lost from the main base and everyone assumes Levi has died. But Levi survives by using parachute, landing safely. As he enters the portal, the people in the camp notice the green portal above them opening. Realizing that the plane might have crashed nearby, a team from the camp sets out to find it. On their way, they encounter Levi and head towards the plane together, hoping it might help them return to the future. However, during their journey, a giant snake attacks Riley, but Levi saves her by killing the snake. After a long trek, they finally reach the plane, only to find it in terrible condition. Levi attempts to get it working again, but the damage is too severe. The plane could be repaired, but the necessary parts are unavailable, and there's no way to find them in this prehistoric world. Before heading back to camp, the group gathers all the supplies they can from the plane. During this time, Levi picks up strange signals coming from about 5 kilometers away. They decide to investigate the source of the signals before returning to camp. On the way, Levi gives Eve the wedding ring from her husband. Meanwhile, in the present, Gavin starts having more visions, showing him that Levi is alive and has reunited with Eve. He rushes to tell Sophia and discovers a file revealing that there have been other portals like this one in the past. Sophia is seen in a photo with a doctor named Rebecca, suggesting that the government has known about these portals for a long time but has kept them hidden from the public. The government had cancelled all rescue missions after Levi's plane crashed. Frustrated and angry, Gavin steals the secret file and leaves. He then visits Dr. Rebecca's house, where he finds Sophia present as well. Gavin learns from Dr. Rebecca that they had secretly prepared another plane to send through the portal. Rebecca reveals the truth to Gavin. These time portals have opened many times before. The last known portal had a team of scientists sent through it, but the portal closed before they could return, trapping the entire team in the past. Among them was Sophia's fiancée Diana. This is why Sophia and Rebecca had secretly built a plane capable of navigating the portals. Gavin, determined to save his family, insists on flying the plane himself into the portal. Dr. Rebecca agrees to accompany him. Meanwhile, in the past, tension rises in the camp. Veronica and Lily have a fight because Lily refuses to listen to her sister and runs into the jungle. There, Lily discovers the body of a dead man from their camp. She screams and the others quickly gather. To their shock, they realize that the man was killed by a lightning strike, even though there's no electricity in their environment. Lily tries to explain that she saw an old man with a handprint mark on his back watching her, but Veronica pulls her away before she can say more. As they leave, the same man, named Silas, secretly watches them. Meanwhile, Levi and the rest of the group follow the strange signals and discover a village, indicating that other people are living in this time period. Upon entering the village, they come across a temple with the same handprint symbol they've seen before. Inside the temple, they find a body place inside same handprint symbol. Levi reveals to the group that before his mission, Sophia had tasked him with finding the team of scientists who had entered the portal 3 years ago for research. The body they found in the temple matches the photo of one of these scientists. Levi takes a walkie-talkie from the scientist's belongings and decides to leave the village quickly, sensing danger. Meanwhile, in another part of the village, a man attacks Lucas and Scott, knocking Lucas unconscious and capturing Scott. This This man speaks perfect English, indicating he might have come from the future just like them. Josh and Riley, who were trying to find a way out of the village, are suddenly trapped as the door closes behind them and villagers start approaching from the front. They flee, with Levi and Eve hiding inside a house filled with children. One of the children, Isaiah, tells them that his grandfather, Silas, warned them that anyone who comes from the sky is dangerous. Eve reassures Isaiah that they mean no harm, and the boy shows them a way out of the village. Meanwhile, Scott and Lucas, who were tied up in the temple, escape using lighter. They manage to avoid detection from the villagers searching for them. They reunite with the others, and the entire group prepares to leave the village. Although Silas and the villagers could have attacked them, their leader Paro decides to let them go. The group returns safely to the camp. The group informs everyone at the camp that there are other people living in a nearby village who may belong to the same time period but don't want any contact with them. That night, Ty asks Lily why she's been upset with him. Lily reveals a shocking truth. Veronica is not her real sister. In fact, Veronica and her father kidnapped Lily a year ago. Veronica overhears this confession and, realizing her secret is out, runs away from the camp. In the present, Dr. Rebecca takes Gavin and Izzy to the same location where she has been excavating. This is the spot where the survivors' camp was set up 10,000 years ago. By digging there, they hope to uncover what happened to the camp in the past. During the dig, they find an old letter written by Eve in the past. In the letter, Eve expresses her regret for not believing in Gavin's visions and apologizes to him. The letter also warns that the portal is shrinking, meaning they need to send a rescue team quickly or the survivors will be trapped in the past forever. Back in the past, Levi manages to contact Diana, Sophia's fiancée, via radio. Diana explains that her plane was damaged, which is why she couldn't return to the present. Levi then comes up with the idea of using parts from Diana's plane to repair his own, hoping this will allow them to escape together. The next morning, Levi and a group of survivors set out in a car to reach Diana's location. After a long drive, Levi and the group finally find Diana, who explains how she and her team have been trapped for the past 3 years. They inspect Diana's plane and discover they are fortunate enough to have all the parts needed to repair Levi's plane. Meanwhile, in the present, Gavin and Dr. Rebecca make a shocking discovery at the excavation site. They find Levi's plane wrecked and filled with bodies. This reveals that Levi's plane will crash when they attempt to return through the portal, killing everyone on board. Horrified by this, Gavin rushes to Rebecca's plane, desperate to go back in time and warn them. However, the others stop him. Gavin pleads with Sophia and Rebecca to find a way to send a warning message to the past, urging them not to try to escape using the plane as it will lead to disaster. Back in the past, Lily shares her suspicion with Ty that Veronica, like her, might have been kidnapped by her father. She convinces Ty to search for Veronica, and they find her grieving at the grave of her so-called father. Ty tries to comfort her, telling her that they won't judge her because she too is a victim. But as soon as Ty mentions the man's death, Veronica panics and runs off. Meanwhile, Eve and Levi return to the camp with good news. They can repair Levi's plane and possibly escape. However, the plane can't carry everyone, so they decide to hold a democratic lucky draw to determine who will get the chance to leave. Scott and Lucas discover a chest near a tree containing a large gold coin from the American Civil War. Lucas is excited at the prospect of taking the coin back to the present and becoming rich, but their attention is diverted when they see something descending from the portal. The group rushes to investigate and discovers it's a military drone carrying a message from Gavin. The message warns them not to attempt returning to the present using the plane, as it will crash, killing everyone on board. Gavin explains that they found the plane's wreckage and the skeletons in the future, and that he and Dr. Rebecca are building another plane to come and rescue them. Eve and Mary believe Gavin's warning and agree to stay, but the rest of the group, desperate to escape, still wants to take the risk. Levi and Diana begin to prepare the plane for takeoff, but Eve and Marybeth, determined to protect their children, try to stop them at gunpoint. In the tense confrontation, Diana accidentally shoots the plane's fuel tank. In the chaos, Mary shoots Diana in self-defense. Despite their efforts, Diana succumbs to her injuries and dies. In the present, Gavin and Dr. Rebecca prepare to take off in their plane to reach the sinkhole and rescue the survivors. However, a government agent warns them that they will be shot by missile if they approach the portal without permission. Despite the threat, Dr. Rebecca is determined to go to the past. She jumps into the portal alone, leaving Gavin behind. On a call with his daughter, Izzy, Gavin decides not to risk his life and turns the plane back. Meanwhile, in the past, the survivors watch helplessly as the green portal finally closes. The next morning, the group, angry and frustrated, gathers to confront Mary, blaming her for Diana's death. After a vote, they decide that both Eve and Mary should be expelled from the group because of their actions, Eve for holding them at gunpoint and Mary for shooting Diana. Eve is devastated to see that even her son Josh voted for her to be removed. On the other side, Ty wakes up with a sudden realization that the village leader Paro is coming to kill her. However, instead of attacking, Paro comes to save her from a snake. Paro explains that the villagers aren't evil, they just want to protect their village from the mysterious mysterious sky people who keep appearing with weapons to attack them. As a snowstorm approaches, they take shelter in a cave together, temporarily putting aside their differences. Back in the present, Gavin faces increased pressure and is warned not to take any unauthorized actions. Determined to find answers, he confides in Sophia, revealing that he was adopted and has no memories from before his adoption. He believes that finding his biological family might explain his visions of the past. Sophia and Gavin investigate the church that gave him the name Gavin as a child. They track down the address and visit the woman who recognized young Gavin. She reveals that she found him standing by the roadside in 1988, and he wasn't alone. There was also a 12-year-old girl with him. Since the church didn't know their family, they were adopted by different families, separating them. It becomes clear that Gavin's past holds secrets he's yet to uncover. Sophia tracks down the location of the girl who was with Gavin when they were found as children. They visit her last known address, but she no longer lives there. However, they find a statue at the house made of the same stone that often appears in Gavin's visions. The statue has a handprint on it, just like in Gavin's visions, suggesting that the girl may have similar visions. Meanwhile, in the past, a snowstorm hits the survivors' camp. As Eve and Mary prepare to leave after being expelled from the group, a tower collapses onto Lucas's shelter. Mary rushes in to save her son, and both end up trapped inside. The group works together to free them, but the roof is too heavy and any wrong move could be fatal. Eventually, they decide to create a small explosion to clear the debris and rescue Mary and Lucas. After the storm passes, the group, impressed by Mary's bravery in saving her son, decides to let Mary and Eve stay, realizing that they all need each other to survive. Josh apologizes to his mother, Eve, for being angry and voting against her. Ty returns to the camp from the cave, having said goodbye to Paro, the village leader. Suddenly, they hear someone running toward their camp. It's Isaiah, the village boy who had initially helped them find a way out of the village. Isaiah is injured, and Dr. Sam tends to his wounds. The group sees an opportunity to build a positive relationship with the villagers by returning Isaiah safely, hoping that this goodwill gesture will encourage the villagers to help them in the future. Eve, Levi, Isaiah, and Ty set out in a jeep to return Isaiah to the village. Isaiah explained that he knew the survivors were good people because he had been observing them from the beginning. As they returned to the village, the villagers surrounded the jeep, and Ty spoke to Paro, asking for their help to help them learn to farm and live. Paro agreed, understanding that if the camp survivors died of hunger, they might eventually turn on the village in desperation. The next day, the survivors at the camp began learning from Paro and the villagers. Paro shared the history of the village, revealing that the portal in the sky first opened 60 years ago. Since then, people from different future timelines have arrived, often violent and armed. Their different languages have blended in them, allowing them to understand English. Meanwhile, Veronica returned to the camp to take her sister Lily with her. She was still hiding in a cave but was eventually found by Mary Beth and Dr. Sam. However, when Veronica's health suddenly deteriorated, they had no choice but to release her so Dr. Sam could treat her quickly. Levi asks Silas why so many bodies of peoples were found, which seemed like they died due to electric or lightning shock. Silas and Paro explained that although they didn't know why, they found many bodies over the years. They placed these bodies in the center of the handmark areas as part of their village tradition. The situation grew more tense when they discovered that Isaiah had been kidnapped. The group quickly split up to search for him. Silas found Isaiah, but it turned out that the kidnapper was none other than Dr. Rebecca. She claimed that Isaiah had a destiny to fulfill and needed to be taken away from the village. Silas reacts angrily when he sees Rebecca holding Isaiah, pulling out a knife to protect the boy. This suggests that Silas knew something about Isaiah's importance all along. The rest of the group sees this and brings Rebecca back to the village, Levi recognizing Rebecca from a previous team photo. Silas takes Isaiah to safe place. However, Isaiah, frightened by everything happening, tries to return to the cave alone. In the present, Gavin and Sophia find the new address of the girl who was with Gavin when he was a child. They discover a small sinkhole at the location, and Gavin starts having more visions. Rebecca explains that the young boy Isaiah is actually Gavin, Eve's husband from the future timeline. This revelation changes everything. It means that Gavin, the man who married Eve and fathered her 2 children, is actually from this ancient time period, 10,000 BC. After a few days, young Isaiah will enter a portal and be transported to 1988, where he will be found and adopted by a family through the church, erasing his memory of his true origins. Old Silas, knowing this, was trying to prevent Isaiah from leaving because he didn't want to lose his grandson to the future. If Isaiah didn't go through the portal, Gavin wouldn't exist, and neither will he ever marry Eve, nor will their children be born. That is, the whole family of Eve will be removed from reality. Dr. Rebecca reveals to Eve that in order to save her family, young Isaiah must go through a time portal soon. This portal is far from their current location and is the same one that will transport Isaiah to the future. Meanwhile, in the present, Gavin finally remembers everything. He realizes that he is actually from 10,000 BC and that his visions were not visions at all. They were memories of his childhood in the distant past. The entire group splits into teams to search for Isaiah, knowing time is running out. Josh eventually finds Isaiah just as a tiger is about to attack him. Josh bravely intervenes, managing to fend off the tiger. By the time Levi and Eve arrive, they notice that Isaiah has a wound on his hand, the same wound that Gavin, Eve's husband in the future, still bears. Silas, who doesn't want to lose his grandson, follows them closely, determined to prevent Isaiah from leaving. In the present, Gavin and Sophia arrive at the house of the girl who had been with Gavin when he was found as a child. Her name is Ile. Ile tells Gavin that she doesn't remember anything before her adoption, but she also has visions. Like Gavin, she never realized these visions were actually memories of her past. Back in the past, Rebecca recovers and returns to the camp. Meanwhile, Eve, Dr. Sam, Josh, and young Isaiah are making their way toward the portal when they realize that Silas and his villagers are pursuing them to stop Isaiah from leaving. They hurry, but find themselves at a precarious rope bridge they must cross. As Eve and Isaiah begin to cross, Levi cuts the rope of the bridge. Silas threatens Eve, warning that if she doesn't return Isaiah, he will kill Levi and Josh. In the present, Gavin and Sophia help Ella recall her past by showing her childhood belongings, items she had forgotten about. Ella is actually Lily from 10,000 BC. Ella begins to remember her life as Lily. That means there was two versions of Lily in one same timeline. In the past, Dr. Rebecca informs the camp that a small portal will open for one day, leading to 1988. She explains that while it's a chance for the survivors to escape, they won't return to their original time in 2024, but rather to 1988. Rebecca urges Lily to go through the portal, knowing that her destiny lies there. Veronica, who has been protecting Lily, decides to accompany her. However, as they approach the portal, Veronica gets trapped. Lily, being a child and unable to free her, is forced to move forward alone, leaving Veronica behind. At present, Ela found items she had, contained a map detailing all the portals and their opening times and locations given by Rebecca. One entry revealed that a portal would open the next day in Seattle, but it would trigger a massive earthquake, endangering thousands of lives. Gavin and Sophia realize they need to alert the government immediately to evacuate the area and prevent a catastrophe. Meanwhile, Eve attempts to rescue Levi and Josh from Silas's clutches, but she's quickly captured by Silas's men. Silas admits that he knows Isaiah will be lost to him forever if he goes through the portal, which is why he's trying to stop it. Unbeknownst to Silas, Isaiah is watching from a distance. Just as one of Silas's men captures Isaiah, Ty arrives and knocks the man out. He instructs Lucas, Riley, and Mary Beth to ensure Isaiah reaches the portal as soon as it opens, while the rest of them focus on rescuing Eve, Josh, and Levi from Silas. They launch a sudden attack on Silas's men, freeing the captives. Silas himself manages to escape, but the group is successful in freeing their friends. Eve notices that Josh is becoming increasingly weak. She realizes that if Isaiah doesn't enter the portal, Josh's existence in the present could be erased. In the present, Gavin's daughter Izzy is also slowly fading. Para and Ty continue to chase Silas to prevent him from causing further harm, while Eve and the others rush to ensure Isaiah's safe passage to the portal. As they approach the portal, they encounter more of Silas's villagers, who try to block their way. Mary Beth courageously defends Isaiah, shooting at the villagers to protect him. However, she is gravely injured in the process, stabbed by one of the villagers. Despite her injury, Mary Beth stays behind with Lucas, urging the others to continue with Isaiah. As Lucas tries to get his injured mother back to camp, she succumbs to her knife wound, leaving Lucas devastated. Meanwhile, Eve's group, realizing they are running out of time to reach the portal before it closes, decides to take a shortcut through a cave. As Eve climbs, the old ladder breaks, leaving her dangling. Josh manages to catch and pull her up, but the rest of their group is stranded below. Eve, Josh, and Isaiah continue their journey, eventually reaching the mountain where the green portal is open. In the present, Gavin and Sophia rush to the authorities in Seattle, warning them of an impending earthquake due to a portal opening. The police begin evacuating the area, but as they do, something unexpected happens. The map starts to fade, indicating that the future is changing. The portal is now set to open a little further from the city in a deserted area, sparing the citizens from disaster. The portal was too small for a plane to pass through. At the same time, both in the past and the present, Izzy and Josh are fading. Back in the past, as Eve hurries to get Isaiah to the portal, Silas suddenly attacks, pushing Eve aside and grabbing Isaiah. However, Isaiah resists, not wanting to go with Silas. He escapes from Silas's grip and runs back to Eve. Ty and Para arrive and manage to convince Silas to accept Isaiah's fate. Silas, realizing he cannot change what is destined, reluctantly lets go. Eve then takes Isaiah to the time portal and with a heavy heart sends him through alone. Isaiah disappears into the portal. As he vanishes, the timeline stabilizes. Lily arrives at the portal just as it's starting to close, but seeing the portal shrink fills her with fear. Josh and Riley try to reassure her and encourage her to step through. However, in a sudden flash, the portal closes around them, taking not only Lily but also Josh and Riley with it, sending them all to 1988, a time they weren't meant to go to. In the present, Gavin makes a bold decision. Determined to save his family, he decides to travel back to 10,000 BC through the portal. His daughter Izzy and Ela support his decision, and the three of them jump into the portal, arriving in the ancient past. It confirms after seeing a mammoth. As Scott and Rebecca explore their surroundings, they come across a strange modern-looking building in the ancient world. So Season 1 of series La Brea ends here. Please subscribe if you liked the video.